the internet. It's on computers now. It's exciting, isn't it? Welcome to Really Off the Record with Bret Hart. We're talking about his new book, Hitman, My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling. I was fascinated, Bret, as someone who grew up watching Stampede Wrestling myself. A ton of this book is dedicated to not only your experiences in Stampede, but the things your father and your brothers went through in Stampede Wrestling. Did you intend to include so much of that in the book?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. When I first started writing this book, when I was finished the Stampede Wrestling part, I think it almost could have been a book all by itself that would have stood up on its own. But I also knew that the whole story would get better and better with because the Stampede Wrestling is all memory. So if they're going to find any errors in this book,
it's going to be in the
Stampede. They might be in the Stampede, but I don't even think that. It's a pretty well documented all the way through.
Tell me your favorite match of all time, and I know that's tough because you've done so much. You've wrestled in so many important matches. What was your favorite, most important thing you ever did in the ring?
Well, I think if I could go back and have one match again, or sort of relive it, I wrote about it. I had a match with the Dynamite Kid in Regina one time, a ladder match, my first ever ladder match. And it certainly was a painful match too, but I think the emotion and the spirit of what I loved about wrestling, even from the fans that were there, it was such a sort of, if I could make a movie, I'd make a movie about that one night. It was so dramatic and so, like, I remember I had banged Dynamite Kid's head on a chair, and he hit his head on the chair so hard that it flew back and he smashed my nose. I could actually put my baby finger through my nostril up here. And I was so mad because my mom had said, "Don't ever break your nose. Promise me you won't break your nose." But I mean, it was shattered. I remember I'd pulled Dynamite up from the floor and I said, "How bad is it?" And he just went, ugh, and that told me, like, oh my God, what? I thought I didn't even know what to expect when I got to the mirror.
Can you talk about the Dynamite Kid? You talk about him so much in this book, Bret, and he was obviously a guy with demons. Did you know that right away when you first met him? Talk about your relationship with Tom.
He was, I think I can say, and maybe only I can say, that he was probably the greatest wrestler I ever watched of all time, bar none. Pound for pound, he was the greatest wrestler that I ever knew. The only one that I feel quite easily saying was better than me. And he was a little guy with a small man complex, but he had a great genius for wrestling, not just for the work in the ring, but the psychology. I think he had an amazing psychology, and he was an amazing guy. He was just, unfortunately, was a bully, and he had a mean streak in him, and he could be a rotten person. But luckily for me, I eventually kind of got to earn his respect a little bit, and we kind of got where we made some pretty good music together. And but he was a hard drinker and a hard liver, and he's a guy that burned himself out at too young of an age. And I wish now that, I don't know if anyone could have fully comprehended that when he had that back surgery, that he really should have just stopped. And I think he would have stopped if he could have seen where it would take him. And I remember the doctors warned him that it could he could end up in a wheelchair if he kept going. But he was a very tough guy and he was going to prove everyone wrong.
Right.
And he ended up being wrong, and it's a kind of he's every bit the tragedy that Davey Boy was.
Can we talk about, I found it so fascinating that the WWF wanted you to become Cowboy Bret Hart. Was that that was the character?
They really worked hard on that idea.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting one. But you essentially then came up with the Hart Foundation idea. How much of your persona did you come up with over the years, or how much of it was Vince?
I think all of it.
Yeah.
To be honest, they never helped me with it very much. They never did much for me. No ring entrance music. Hart Foundation had just nothing. We used to just walk out with Jimmy Hart and that megaphone, and we had no input as far as the name. I came up with my own name. Even the gimmick Hart Hitman with the sunglasses was my own gimmick, and which wasn't much of a gimmick. I remember they wanted me to take the sunglasses off one time. I said, I don't have much of a gimmick. It's all I got. Like, can I just wear the sunglasses? And I remember I really got in a fierce thing with the TV people. They wanted me. They said I couldn't wear the glasses. And I refused. I stood my ground, and it was like a week later they came up to me with the wraparounds and said, "We want you to wear these every week." And I said, that's my point. You know, like you guys were about to have me take them off, but it's my gimmick. And it turned out to be the highest selling bit of merchandise I think they ever had. They sold more sunglasses than they did Hulk Hogan headbands or whatever else came up after that.
This has been really fascinating, and the book is fantastic, so well written. Bret, thanks for joining us on
You're welcome.
Really Off the Record, and I hope you enjoyed the internet. It's free.